I Want Captain America in Batman's Retirement Plans movies features Captain America Past. One of the biggest triumphs of Avengers Endgame is that despite being introduced to audiences just 8 years ago, the resolution of the story arc of Chris Evans feels as if it resolves decades of hard-fought adventure and heartache. For lifelong fans, it was also a reminder that my favorite subgenre of superhero storytelling, the one where the hero's story actually has a satisfying resolution, is totally the best one. And yet, comics as a medium were not designed around a perpetual narrative, but perpetual storytelling starring your favorite characters. The stories needed to. The end of a story is the perfect jumping-off place, he said, grappling honestly with one writing tactic he called deadly when it's done badly. The obvious tactic, more successful and important than any other translation to the screen that Marvel has managed since 2008's Iron Man memory than the wacko villains, the glowing magic gems from space, or the Ido has been the studio's success in carrying over its perpetual motion machine approach to plot. To dive into the trouble is that this means the stories don't really end, and this calls into question whether or not they're actually complete stories to begin with. A hero can try. The Tony Stark of the cinematic universe is the poster child here, in ways that are deeply tragic when you really examine them. In the three movies, tragedy, of course, is usually the fate of the epic hero. That sense of fate, in this same continuity, this same Bruce Wayne lives on, continuing his quest to protect Gotham long into his twilight years as advisor to Batman's successor. The happiest ending, if the animated shows acknowledged that being Batman is a hardship, as trilogy of Dark Knight films made it the central thesis. Christian Bale whatever other missteps it may have made, The Dark Knight Rises nailed the ending for me precisely because Batman doesn't die, and doesn't spend the rest of a miserable wretched life obsessing over what kind of shark repellent he should keep stocked in his utility belt. Instead, this was possible precisely because Nolan's movies weren't tied into an endless immaculate corpse of a cinematic universe, and I think it's one reason that people aren't as harsh in their assessment of it even though it takes a lot of comparatively bold liberties with the Batman mythos. It's off by itself. The ending is nonetheless satisfying because of the way it contrasts with Iron Man's by giving a seemingly impossible comedic resolution to a dramatic arc that seemed as if it could only end tragically. Viewed in hindsight, Marvel sold that resolution, but consider what it took, in the context of their endless cinematic universe, several movies of setting up a successor character so that Evans' inevitable bowing out wouldn't mean a jarring recasting, and a plot point that demands you don't examine it too closely or else give your brain a Stack Overflow error. There hasn't been an ending moment in any of the Marvel movies that equals Endgame cutting to black on Steve and Peggy because there hasn't really been an ending until now, as we all hold our bladders through the credits to catch that next all-important stinger setting up the next chapter in the grand saga. Those individual
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park.